Emily Harris had always been the picture of health. A 32-year-old marketing executive, she balanced her high-powered job with a personal commitment to fitness. Every morning, she rose at 5:30 a.m., went for a run, and then followed up with a protein-packed smoothie before heading to work. Smoothies were her thing. Everyone at the office knew it. She'd even earned the nickname the Smoothie Queen after posting a few colorful concoctions on Instagram. Her day started with excitement. She meticulously planned each smoothie: berries, spinach, kale, chia seeds, almond milk, and a dollop of peanut butter. No sugar, no dairy. It was the epitome of what she believed was a healthy, balanced start to the day. She loved the fresh taste, the way it made her feel energized and ready to conquer her demanding schedule. But as the months passed, Emily began to notice something. She was still feeling sluggish in the afternoons despite her careful routine. Her weight had slowly started creeping up. At first, she blamed it on work stress, sleepless nights, or the holiday season when everyone seems to overindulge. But the numbers on the scale continued to climb, and so did her energy dips. Emily wasn't used to this. In the past, she'd always been able to maintain her weight with minimal effort. But now, her jeans felt tight and her energy levels were erratic. She brushed it off, thinking it was just a rough patch. After all, she'd heard from others that smoothies were one of the healthiest ways to start your day. Everyone at her gym and work praised the benefits. However, things started to change when Emily began feeling more frequent heartburn. It was subtle at first, just an occasional discomfort after drinking her daily smoothie. But over time, the sensation became a regular occurrence. She chalked it up to the acidity of the fruits in her smoothie and started adding more almond milk to calm it down. Soon, Emily couldn't ignore the fact that the energy highs she once experienced from her smoothie routine had started to be followed by dramatic energy crashes. She felt jittery, unfocused, and irritable at times, which was completely out of character for her. She told herself it was just stress. It had to be one fateful Thursday morning. As she struggled to get through another afternoon slump, she felt a nagging worry creep into her thoughts. Was it the smoothies? Could something so healthy be doing more harm than good? That very evening, Emily decided to take a trip to her doctor for a routine checkup. She hadn't been in a while, but her symptoms felt strange, like something was off. After explaining the heartburn, weight gain, and energy issues, her doctor ran a full panel of blood tests. The results came back with a shock that sent her reeling. Her fasting blood glucose was high. The doctor's words echoed in her head. "You're showing signs of prediabetes." Emily was stunned. Prediabetes? She was healthy. She worked out regularly, ate well, or so she thought, and made good lifestyle choices. But her doctor explained that her daily smoothie, while healthy in many ways, was loaded with sugar. Even though the sugar was natural, coming from fruits like bananas, mangoes, and berries, it was still sugar. And the more sugar Emily consumed throughout the day, the more her body struggled to process it. Her doctor recommended she cut back on sugar, especially hidden sugars in things like smoothies. "It's not just about what you eat," he explained. "It's about how your body responds to it over time. Your body is starting to show signs of insulin resistance." As she left the office, Emily's mind raced. How had it gotten to this point? She was in shock, but a part of her felt guilty. How could she have missed the signs? That evening, Emily sat in her kitchen, staring at the half-empty smoothie glass in front of her. The banana, kale, and almond milk blend she'd been drinking for months suddenly felt like a betrayal. She had always been so proud of how healthy she was, so committed to her smoothies as part of her clean eating routine. But now, it seemed that something as simple as a smoothie was contributing to a health issue she hadn't even considered. She couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with guilt. How had she not seen the warning signs earlier? The extra weight that had gradually crept up on her, the stomach discomfort, the mid-afternoon energy crashes. Were these all part of a bigger picture she had ignored? She had always been so vigilant about her fitness and diet. But it had never occurred to her that she could be sabotaging her own health with something she thought was helping her. After a sleepless night filled with endless thoughts, Emily dove into researching prediabetes. The information was overwhelming. She learned about the role of insulin resistance and how the body's ability to manage sugar was a delicate balance. For someone like Emily, who had always been an advocate of clean eating, it was hard to believe that even healthy foods could cause harm if consumed in the wrong proportions. She discovered that smoothies, especially when packed with fruits high in sugar, could spike blood sugar levels, leading to a cycle of energy highs followed by crashes. Exactly what she had been feeling. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Emily's daily smoothie routine, though packed with nutritious ingredients, had become a source of excessive sugar. With each fruit-packed glass, she had unknowingly been consuming more sugar than her body could process, which had triggered the onset of prediabetes. It wasn't just about the smoothies themselves, but also about how her overall diet and lifestyle were contributing to her blood sugar imbalance. The next morning, Emily went back to her doctor for further testing. She had come to terms with the reality of prediabetes but wanted to understand exactly what steps she could take to reverse the damage before it escalated into full-blown diabetes. Her doctor was calm and methodical, explaining that prediabetes was a wake-up call, a warning before things got worse. He told her that, with proper diet changes, exercise, and better blood sugar management, she could potentially reverse the condition. But there was no time to waste. She needed to act fast. Cutting back on sugar is the first step, he said, and that includes those smoothies. You need to focus on stabilizing your blood sugar. Opt for lower sugar fruits and increase your fiber intake. Whole grains, leafy greens, and healthy fats will be your allies. Emily felt both terrified and relieved. She wasn't beyond help yet. It wasn't too late to turn things around, but she had to be proactive. For the next week, Emily went on a journey of discovery, carefully reviewing the foods and drinks that she thought were healthy but were, in fact, contributing to her prediabetes. She took a long, hard look at her beloved smoothie routine and started making adjustments. She swapped out the higher sugar fruits for lower sugar options like berries, cucumbers, and avocado. She added in more greens, like spinach and kale, and included chia seeds and flax for added fiber. Emily even began experimenting with vegetable-based smoothies, a concept she'd never thought to try before. At the same time, she committed to tracking her blood glucose levels daily to see how different foods impacted her body. The results were eye-opening. She was seeing firsthand how specific foods affected her blood sugar. She started to understand her body's needs on a deeper level, an understanding she had never had before, despite all the health books and online articles she had read. But even as Emily took these steps, she knew the process wouldn't be easy. There were moments when she missed the sweetness of her old smoothies. She had to remind herself that it was no longer just about what tasted good. It was about her health. The morning smoothie that once gave her a rush of energy now needed to be something that helped her manage her condition, not make it worse. Emily also realized that her relationship with food needed to change. It wasn't just about losing weight or looking good anymore. It was about sustaining her body in a way that would keep her healthy in the long term. She began to shift her focus from eating clean to eating smart, understanding the true impact of the foods she consumed. But there was another challenge on the horizon. Emily had always been the first to share her health tips with friends, and her social circle had come to rely on her advice. Now, she would have to explain the shift in her routine to the people around her, who had always seen her as the perfectly healthy one. She was worried about the judgment, about how people might view her once they knew she wasn't immune to the struggles they faced. It wasn't just about changing her diet. It was about navigating how others would perceive her health journey. As Emily continued her journey to regain control over her health, she quickly realized that the emotional and social aspects of her condition were just as challenging as the physical ones. Her friends and family had always looked to her for health advice. She was the one who knew all the latest trends, who could rattle off the best smoothie recipes, who had been the go-to person for workout tips. But now, with her prediabetes diagnosis, she was facing a new reality. One where she wasn't the expert anymore, but a woman grappling with her own health issues. The first sign of difficulty came at a dinner gathering with friends. As they all sat around the table, talking about their latest fitness routines, Emily could feel the old pressure mounting. Felt like everyone was watching her every move. When dessert came around, a platter of cakes, cookies, and sugary treats, Emily hesitated. She knew she had to pass on it, but she also knew that her friends would notice. "Come on, Emily, just have one slice," her friend Sarah said with a smile. "You've always been so strict. You deserve to treat yourself." But Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had learned so much in the past week. Even a small slice of cake could send her blood sugar on a roller coaster ride. Yet, the pressure to conform to the old routine was hard to shake. "No, thanks," Emily replied, trying to sound casual. "I've been cutting back on sugar for health reasons." A moment of silence passed, followed by a few awkward glances. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Health reasons? What's wrong? Are you okay?" Emily didn't want to get into the specifics of her prediabetes diagnosis at that moment. It felt too personal, too vulnerable. She could see the confusion in her friends' faces. Most of them didn't understand how someone like her could develop a condition like prediabetes. After all, wasn't she the one who always seemed so disciplined about her health? Trying to deflect the conversation, Emily changed the subject, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her friends were silently judging her. She felt self-conscious, like she was no longer the epitome of health that she had once been. Instead, she was now just another person struggling with something she hadn't anticipated. Later that night, as she sat on her couch, Emily thought about the evening. It wasn't just the dessert that had thrown her off. It was the subtle way her friends had reacted to her new health-conscious choices. It was as though they couldn't understand that someone who appeared to be in perfect health could face an issue like prediabetes. The pressure to explain herself, to justify her choices, felt exhausting. And yet, she knew that this was part of her new reality. The next day at work, Emily had a similar experience. A colleague, Janet, walked by her desk with a big, colorful smoothie in hand. "Got your smoothie, Emily?" Janet asked playfully. "It's what you're known for around here." Emily hesitated, feeling a pang of discomfort. She had already stopped drinking the fruit-heavy smoothies, but the social pressure to keep up the appearance of her healthy persona was real. She forced a smile and replied, "I've cut back a bit on the fruit smoothies, actually." "Really? But they're so good for you," Janet exclaimed, clearly surprised. "What's going on? You've been drinking them for as long as I've known you." Emily quickly explained that she had been dealing with some health issues, but she didn't go into detail about her prediabetes diagnosis. It still felt too raw, too recent to share with everyone. Besides, she didn't want to be treated differently. But Janet's expression was one of concern, and Emily couldn't help but feel a twinge of embarrassment as the days passed. Emily started to feel more isolated. Her healthy habits, the things that had once made her feel proud, now felt like something she had to hide. The people around her didn't understand what she was going through. To them, smoothies were still a symbol of health, not a potential contributor to a serious condition. And Emily wasn't sure how to explain that the very thing she had sworn by, her smoothies, had played a role in putting her health at risk. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging conversation with a friend who insisted that she was just overthinking it, Emily found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about health. Was she being too cautious? Was she being too hard on herself? After all, she had always believed that eating whole, natural foods would keep her in good shape. But now, she understood that there were nuances to health that went beyond surface-level appearances. It wasn't just about consuming healthy foods in large quantities. It was about balance, moderation, and listening to your body. She had to confront the fact that something as simple as her daily smoothie, which she had once considered part of her perfect routine, had been part of a larger problem all along. The emotional weight of this realization began to settle in. She wasn't just navigating a health scare. She was learning to redefine what it meant to be healthy. It wasn't about fitting into a mold or living up to others' expectations of health. It was about finding a sustainable, individualized approach that worked for her body. And that meant letting go of some of her old beliefs about food, exercise, and wellness. That as Emily navigated the emotional complexities of her prediabetes diagnosis, the hardest part wasn't the physical changes. It was the mental shift she had to undergo. Every day felt like a battle between her old habits and the new reality she had to embrace. The smoothies that had once been a symbol of health now felt like a trigger to a condition she never saw coming. And the idea of completely abandoning her old routine, something that had given her structure and pride for years, felt like losing a part of herself. She knew she had to make lasting changes to her diet, but it wasn't easy. Her refrigerator, once stocked with a rainbow of fruits and vegetables for her smoothies, now felt like a reminder of everything she had to give up. Bananas, mangoes, and pineapples, the very fruits she had loved so much, now sat untouched, replaced by lower sugar options like berries, cucumbers, and leafy greens. The process was painful, not because she didn't want to get better, but because it felt like she was giving up something she had once believed was helping her. But the more Emily thought about her health, the more she realized that she couldn't afford to hold on to those old beliefs. She was no longer the same person she had been a few months ago. She wasn't just looking to lose weight or maintain a certain image. She was trying to take back control of her future. And that meant redefining what health looked like for her, not just in the eyes of others, but for herself. The first change she made was in her morning routine. For the past few weeks, Emily had swapped out her fruit-heavy smoothies for a more balanced option. Her new go-to was a green smoothie made with kale, spinach, cucumber, chia seeds, and a small amount of berries for flavor. It wasn't as sweet as her old blends, but the more she drank it, the more she realized that it gave her sustained energy without the sugar spikes. She had also added a scoop of protein powder to keep her fuller for longer and to help manage her blood sugar levels. But even with these healthier changes, Emily found herself struggling with cravings. It wasn't just the smoothies she missed. It was the sweetness, the comfort, the ritual. She had grown accustomed to the routine of blending up something delicious each morning, and now those cravings lingered. She often found herself reaching for a piece of fruit or a sugary snack in the middle of the day, only to remind herself that she couldn't afford to go down that path again. One evening, as Emily prepared her dinner, she found herself staring at the fridge again, wondering if she should give in. But then she stopped. She looked at her reflection in the kitchen window, taking a deep breath. She had spent years defining her identity by her routines, her health, and her image. But now her identity had to evolve. She wasn't going to be the person she used to be, and that was okay. The change was uncomfortable, yes, but it was necessary for her well-being. Over the next few weeks, Emily made small but consistent changes. She started walking more during her lunch breaks, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, and adding more fiber to her meals. She worked with a nutritionist to develop a personalized plan that balanced her blood sugar while still allowing her to enjoy food. She had to learn how to love the new way she was eating, even if it wasn't as glamorous as the brightly colored smoothie bowls she used to share on Instagram. Despite these changes, Emily couldn't avoid the reality of her diagnosis. She had prediabetes, and that meant that she had to be vigilant. But what surprised her the most was how much control she actually had over her health. With the right diet, regular exercise, and conscious effort, she could reverse the effects of prediabetes. And that knowledge gave her a sense of empowerment. She wasn't powerless in the face of her diagnosis. She was capable of making a difference in her own health story. Still, there were days when Emily felt frustrated. She would see people around her enjoying sugary treats without a care in the world. At a work event, a colleague offered her a slice of cake, and for a moment, she was tempted. But she reminded herself of her goals, her health, and the steps she had taken to get better. She couldn't let herself slip back into old habits. One afternoon, while walking home from work, Emily stopped at a park bench to catch her breath. As she sat there, looking out at the people passing by, she reflected on how far she had come. She had learned more about herself in the past few months than she ever had before. She had gained a deeper understanding of her body, of how it responded to food and stress, and how important it was to take care of her mental and emotional health as well. It wasn't just about changing her diet, it was about changing her mindset. She realized that health was a journey, not a destination. She was no longer obsessed with perfection or fitting into a specific mold. She was simply trying to be the healthiest version of herself, and that meant embracing imperfection, listening to her body, and making choices that supported her long-term well-being. 3 months had passed since Emily received her prediabetes diagnosis, and although the journey had been full of ups and downs, she had never felt more grounded in her choices. Her morning smoothie still existed, but it had transformed into a low-sugar, high-fiber powerhouse, far from the fruit-laden blends she once believed were the epitome of health. She had also become more open about her condition. What started as a source of shame had slowly become a story she was willing to share, especially with those around her who might be walking the same tightrope without even realizing it. It began with a vulnerable social media post. She hesitated before hitting share, worried about how it would be received. For years, I thought I was doing everything right. Smoothies every morning, clean eating, fitness routines. But I never realized I was flooding my body with sugar under the guise of health. A few months ago, I was diagnosed with prediabetes. I was shocked, ashamed, and confused. But I've learned so much since then, and I'm taking my health back. If you're feeling off, don't ignore the signs. Sometimes even our healthiest habits need rethinking. #behind the symptoms.